Okay, I think we can get underway now. Apologies for the tardiness. We're about 6-7 minutes late here, but we need one more member to have a quorum because we've got some folks who are running a little bit late tonight. But the first item... Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Good evening. Yes, that's better. Thank you. Our first item of business is just to call the order and the roll call. Carrie, if you would get us started.
I'm turning on my own mic. Commissioner Alvarez?
Here.
Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Commissioner Gorman?
Here.
I'm going to note that Commissioner Kaplan is absent tonight. Commissioner Cole?
Here.
Commissioner Pickett is arriving shortly. It's not here yet. Commissioner Tamimi is also unable to attend. Commissioner Wong Chen will be here shortly as well. Ex officios, Kate Snow. Oh, I think she stepped out just for a second. Michael Villalobos. And then we expect Sawyer Val to be coming shortly as well. Jasmine, our other DJOC high school rep, has a conflict. And then we've also got Councilmember Diaz here.
Great. Well, thank you, Carrie. We have a quorum. And our second item of business is the approval of the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to move to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion from Felix. Second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, second by Connor. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And the motion carries. So thanks very much. And we are on then to item number 3. This is brief announcements from staff, commissioners, and liaisons. You know, as we get underway tonight, I just want to acknowledge that I think, as we all know, we are meeting at a time when there is a lot of pain and anger and fear among many in our community tonight because of the terrible incident in Washington, D.C. last night where a young couple was murdered because they were Jewish. Obviously, all of us suffer from such ugly acts of violence, and I know that there are many people in the community that are grieving now. So, in times like these, I guess I just wanted to acknowledge that that's in the room with us, and I think it's important that we rededicate ourselves to building a tolerant and compassionate and supportive community with resilience and resources, including mental health resources, to help folks live together peacefully despite whatever conflicts we may have. I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. On a brighter note, speaking of community building, I attended the Tuam High Win Awards ceremony on Tuesday, and I just want to take a moment to thank our Tuam High Win committee members. Connor is the only one of them who is currently here. Oh, I'm sorry, you weren't. Felix, I'm sorry. It was Felix, forgive me. But Edgar and Edgar Wong Chen and Ellie Kaplan were also on the committee. I just wanted to, appreciate the effort and thoughtfulness that went into reviewing the nominations, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to recognize the good work of the award winners, and wanted to thank them again. I see one of them is with us tonight. Good evening.
I was going to say we have one with us.
Anyway, just wanted to thank the committee again for the good work and the nominees as well. So let me then turn to my colleagues. Evening, welcome, Lainey. Thanks for all the work that you did getting here, and for Sawyer too, who I think is joined us. There she is, Sawyer. Yes. Okay, so we are on to committee announcements or staff announcements. So let's just check with the other commissioners and see if there's anyone else who has announcements to share.
This is an announcement time, so yes, I just wanted to let everybody know and invite everybody that next Thursday at Central Park, we'll be celebrating Jewish American Heritage Month between 5 and 7, Central Park, and everybody is welcome to come and join us in celebration.
Great, thank you, Amir, looking forward to that. Okay, others? Oh, I'm sorry, Kate. I have to look over here.
Good evening from the ex officio table. First, I want to offer my apologies for not being able to be at the last 3 meetings. But in listening to last month's meeting recording, I thought it might be appropriate for me to offer some information as conversation came up about things that the school district is doing. But I don't feel like, I'll just take a few minutes. I won't respond to all of the things that were discussed at the last meeting. But I did want to just say that there were questions about sort of student participation, student experiences, staff experiences, and so just to offer a couple of things that are also both current information. The school district's superintendent's student advisory for combating dehumanizing language, symbols, and behaviors met at least 9, maybe 10 times this year, had its final meeting a week ago. And this is a meeting that was convened by Superintendent Matt Best in order to work with students to develop a way, a campaign, a slogan, a set of processes or reports, whatever it was, that students felt would be effective in addressing dehumanizing language. Another thing we sometimes call identity-based harm. It's another term we use. And so the results of that group have been to, they spent a long time looking at a lot of the things we look at and a lot of things community members have raised for us, but focused in sort of 3 areas about preventing dehumanizing language, behaviors, and symbols by educating, increasing the and with that, educating students about how to report it, but also teachers how to interrupt it, to be serious about responding to it, both with consequences and educational materials, and transparency with students about tracking those responses, those incidents and responses. So very parallel to lots of the questions we have in the community about how to track, how to address, how to educate. Sneak preview of the slogan at a public meeting. Do better, know better, do better, be better. And that the initial sort of thrust of that will be to have students and families and staff sign a pledge to not use words and symbols, some of them stated or, named, but also as a non-inclusive list, what's the word, anyway, you know what I mean. Not the only things. So I want to say that that's moving forward. In the fall, there will be a whole launching process for that pledge. We're even working with younger students this week to make that in language that's accessible to them as well. So, and they have great ideas about how to spread the word, including that 4th, 5th, and 6th graders can help educate kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd graders, and 3rd graders. They're buddies. So I just want to lay that out as one of the ways in which the district is working. The other got mentioned that I wanted to clarify, the constituency leadership groups. I think Dima mentioned it, a couple of others did, but we have an anti-bias education grant that we're finishing the 2nd year of, where our model for addressing harm to groups in our system is to work directly with those most affected by the harm and to listen to their descriptions so that we can figure out how to change the system to meet those needs. So over the past year and a half, we've been working with, at this point, 6 different constituency groups of staff members. And those are African-American, Black African-American staff, LGBTQIA staff, Jewish staff, Muslim staff, and staff with disabilities. Each year, we had 2 the first year, 6 this year, we'll have a few more next year, and that'll be based on a retreat we have in June for next year. But those groups have been making recommendations for how to make the system better for students and for staff. So it's included things like protecting LGBTQIA staff who've been doxxed or followed, creating possibilities for halal food at meals for students, providing, making sure holidays are appropriately noted on our calendars, and also providing professional development around issues of anti-Semitism, of anti-Islamophobia, anti-LGBTQ. So that's just a little picture. Sorry, it's a long update, but I wanted to fill in some of the gaps that I could hear in the conversation last night. And then I just want to say we celebrated our Native American promotion and graduation celebration last night. It was the 5th one, the 4th in person, but the 5th celebration with drumming and singing and dancing and good food and blankets and sharing of gifts. Today was the senior celebration for Latinos Unidos at Davis High School. That was a beautiful event with over 20 students being honored with their parents or family or person of significance. And May 31st is our 8th or 9th of this generation of Black Grad celebrations that will happen, honoring 30-ish BSU members, an inclusive group of BSU members, and in a big event that happens, created by staff and some community members who organize it. That's it for now.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing all that information, Kate, and look forward to further updates and I'm sure conversations. I think there's a lot of good work happening. I appreciate it. Thank you. Mayor.
So do we not have, typically we have on our regular items, hate incidents in the community, and don't see that?
That's right.
And I have an update too.
Yeah, I know, so I'm just gonna, Mayor, we'll get to that in a moment. See if anyone else has anyone else on the dais has any announcements or anything they want to share? Okay, let's go then to Linda and Carrie as well.
Hey, I just wanted to let you know there's going to be a vigil tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. at the Havering with regard to the tragedy that happened in Washington, D.C. That will be at 6 o'clock and it's open to the community.
Very good.
For all to be able to come to that.
Thank you for sharing that. 6 o'clock at the congregation. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let's move then to Carrie.
Okay, just got a few very quick announcements for you guys. An update on commission recruitment. The application process has closed. The council subcommittee assigned to establishing new commissioners is working through the applications and interviews now. And it is expected that council will receive those recommendations at their meeting on June 17th. And that is the time where new commissioners will be appointed, and then they will go through their, their training and all of that. So for the purpose of this meeting, any new commissioners would come on board for our August meeting. Second announcement is our minority opinion clarification. At the last meeting, you'll recall that there was a discussion around how to or if a minority opinion could be included in a report. The answer is yes, it should the commission ever decide and vote to include a minority opinion along with whatever report or recommendations are going forward, then that is something that can be done. I think that question was raised and neither Lisa nor Linda or I had anything to reference, so we wanted to follow up and let you guys know that that is something that can for certain happen if the commission agrees to do so. Lastly, I just wanted to share some upcoming dates to remember. One was going to be the Jewish American Heritage Month, which picnic, which you already shared. Second is the Pride Festival on June 7th, which HRC will have a table. Thank you all to those who have committed to working that event. The hours have shifted, and if I'm remembering correctly, I think it is 3 to 8 or 3 to 9. So I'll just send you all a reminder for the shifts that you signed up to work at. And then Did Dylan have a confirmation on time for me?
It is 3 o'clock.
Thank you, Dylan. And then the last upcoming date to remind you all of is that our commission is on recess in July. So we do not meet in July. We will have a meeting in June, break for July, and then reconvene in August with some new commissioners on board at that time.
Great.
That is all I have to share.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that. Thank you, Carrie. All right then. I think that concludes our brief announcements from staff commissioners and liaison. And we will move then to general public comment. This is item number 4. This is the general public comment period for items not listed on the agenda or that are listed on the consent calendar. There will also be an opportunity for public comment on items that are listed on the agenda when we take up those items. If you're not able to wait for an item that is later on the agenda, please feel free to provide your public comments now. And just keep in mind that we ask folks to limit themselves to one public comment on an issue. So if you take the opportunity to do so now, then we would ask you not to speak again on that issue if it's coming up later. So I also wanted to note that in order to allow for presentations and discussion of our primary agenda item tonight dealing with immigrants' rights issues, we do not have the usual agenda item on recent hate incidents in response to Amir's question. But if there is anything that anyone would like to raise regarding hate incidents, please feel free to make use of this general public comment period. I know that we did receive one written public comment regarding concerns about an issue at a Passover event, UCD campus in April, which I believe is in the binder, is it, Carrie?
My apologies, I didn't realize that was in reference to this evening's public comment. I thought it was just a general email that you guys sometimes get, so I did not print it.
Okay.
I would be happy to do so. There is another written public comment specific to the Sanctuary City item that is in the back of the binder if anybody wants to look at it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, so just more ground rules. We're asking folks to limit their comments to 3 minutes. There's a timer in front of you. In the interest of conducting business in a timely fashion, we ask that audience not, depart from respectful decorum by, booing, cheering, clapping, etc. I think that is all I wanted to offer by way of introduction to the public comment period. I see some familiar faces, so I think folks in the room know the protocol, and I'll shut up now and turn it over to wiser voices. Starting with our first public comment from Mr. Hirsch.
Thank you very much. I think it's very appropriate to note the death of the 2 Israeli embassy officials that were engaged. Truly sad, the infinite value of their souls should be reflected on, as in all the infinite value of all the souls that are dying in Israel, Gaza. I'd like to acknowledge Carrie's amazing minutes. When I look at lots of commissions, I read lots of things, and her minutes are really extraordinary in terms of capturing the essence, and she is able to boil mine down for 3 minutes to 3 sentences, which is pretty amazing.
I'm going to give Lisa credit for the last meeting, Alan.
Okay, well, whatever. I am here, I just want to share my concern about the Jewish American Heritage event. It was supposed to be an inclusive event, build solidarity, I thought, to build inclusivity, and instead it's become a divisive process because they have changed the rules in terms of which you can participate and put in a political, it's supposed to be a non-political event, and they have put a political litmus test in to basically, an ideological litmus, is actually more correct, about who can participate. And that excludes a number, I think about a third of the people in the community as a result. They attempted to basically screen out a group that was on the left politically, which I object to, because the Jewish community is split on Israel, Gaza, on Zionism. But they have basically put other things in which will exclude other groups, and the synagogue can no longer participate as a result of the rules if it's enforced equally and fairly for everyone. And also, but particularly, they define anti-Zionism as racism. Now, I've passed out here a flyer of a window in Sheriff Israel San Francisco's synagogue, built in 1905, that has Moses coming down from El Capitan. The implication clearly, and in Jewish history, anti-Zionism, rejection of the return to the Palatine was not part of traditional Judaism in America. It was almost split Reform Jewish movement up. And to basically now retroactively call my great-grandparents and my grandparents who came over in the 19th century racist, I find objectionable. This is supposed to be the Jewish American heritage, not the Israeli American heritage. I find this verges on cultural appropriation, and inappropriate and insulting. I am not going to show up. This is appalling. This is supposed to be inclusive, not supposed to distinguish on one type of Jew versus another type of Jew. I passed out this window. I also have some quotes about the anti-American Judaism that's part of the Israeli culture. This is what's going on, and this is what's being used by some people to divide the Jewish community instead of building solidarity. This is not okay. I'm not going to make an issue with it. I don't want to celebrate a nice day on the 29th. But this is not okay. The city should not be involved with this sorts of thing. If people want to do this, that's fine. But this is not okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Please come forward. Thank you. We have another public comment here. Good evening.
My name is Alan Brownstein. Can you hear me through the mask okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
I don't think I've ever spoken before this commission before, although I've been a Davis resident since 1981. I've had the honor of being co-president and vice president of Congregation Bet Havarim and served on its board for several terms. I'm also a distinguished professor Flora Emeritus from King Cole. But please recognize that I'm speaking today exclusively in my personal capacity, not as a representative of Bet Havarim or the law school. Given that you opened the meeting with some recognition of the murder of the two Jews in the District of Columbia, I thought I might read a very brief statement from an article in the Atlantic, which I think captures my perspective on this issue. Quote, like other forms of bigotry, the problem of anti-Jewish prejudice will not be resolved by its targets. Anti-Semitism will not be expunged by the 0.2% of the world that is Jewish, but by the 99.8% that is not. The FBI and Metropolitan Police Department are investigating the shooting as a potential hate crime. But the larger question today is, will our society provide excuses and justifications that fuel further anti-Jewish violence, or will it choose to stand against those who use such pretexts to brutalize Jews the way they have been brutalized for centuries? To me, that's what the murder of these two Jews reflects. Now, I'm a little challenged in my last part of my remarks, because I think I owe you all respect because of the time and energy you put in to being commissioners. But I also want to speak with integrity for myself, so I want to be forthright. I should say that I have no illusions, based on the 45 years I lived in Davis, that this commission has any sensitivity to the needs and interests of the Jewish community. And I have no illusions that this commission is committed to combating anti-Semitism. It never has been over the last 45 years. I simply accept that. But I hoped, at a minimum, that you would recognize that you should do no harm, that you shouldn't add to the anti-Semitism that's prevalent in this community. And instead, the report that you issued about Islamophobia clearly does harm the black community. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bernstein. Good.
So much time, 3 minutes. Alan Miller. I wanted to talk about an incident. Whether you consider it a hate crime or not, or a hate incident or not, is totally up to you. There was, a week ago Friday, a group of women, all masked, with a bullhorn, came into the UCD coffee house and chanted the usual "Free, Free Palestine," and then said, "We don't want no two-state, we want all 48. Okay, now there's 50 states now, but clearly we don't want no two-state goes against the lecture that I saw from a UCD Middle East professor who said that from the river to the sea is just, freedom. It has nothing to do with getting rid of Israel, no. I think we don't want no two-state. It's very clearly getting rid of Israel. And we don't want no 48. I mean, what is that? Like a Palestinian takeover of the continental United States, but they don't want Alaska or Hawaii? I mean, I would want Alaska and Hawaii if I were going to take over the United States. But apparently, because it doesn't rhyme, two-state and 48, two-state 50, that doesn't rhyme, so we'll just give up on those other two states. But really, chanting is the lowest form of communication. Because these people were masked, because Gary May still allows masking, the putz, then we don't know who they are, and because their chant is completely incomprehensible, except that they apparently don't want Israel to exist, then we don't really know who they are or what they want. We know some of what they want. We just want to know how much of the United States they want. But clearly, to get to the point, this was not meant to get any sort of information across. This was meant to intimidate any Jews who happened to be in the coffee house that day. And protesting inside is outside of the guidelines of UC Davis on the manner and how you go about this. And UC Davis has to come up with a policy that they enforce that there's going to be no more masked protests. I don't care if it's cops off campus or whoever these women were. That has to stop, because that is not what protest is.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Next, please come forward. Good evening.
No, you agreement?
Hello.
UC Davis, not UC Davis resident. So I've spoken before about my daughter receiving 8 Nazi salutes in a single class period. That record still stands. And I appreciate your report. However, earlier this week, in one of her elective classes, a student looked at her in the eyes and said, "I love gas chambers." That was such a good joke. I'd rated 9 out of 11. Yes, with a fake German accent. And then gave her another Nazi salute. My daughter replied with, "Actually, I love gas chambers too. My family has a history of loving them." She said that because her grandfather was the only Holocaust survivor from a family of 8. This is happening here, this week, after all this work, in our city, in a public school, on a day-to-day basis. We need to fix it, as I said before. I'm not here to cancel or question the MAPA survey that you talked about, but when I hear the committee members say there are low numbers in this community, so we didn't go do quantitative analysis, I'm stunned, because there's real data out there. According to the AGC, 77% of American Jews feel less safe since October 7th. Over 90% say anti-Semitism has increased. And while Jews are just 2% of the US population, roughly, we made up 68% of religion-based hate crimes in 2023. And that's, I assume, only increased in 2024. Just like you mentioned, 2 Israeli ambassador staffers were murdered outside the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. They should have waited for the police, and that's how they did it for Gaza. This is the environment we are living in. And right now, this city is enabling it. I'm asking you to look me in the eye and tell me that you take the responsibility for changing that. All of you. Because if you don't, it won't end with jokes or salutes. And next time, you won't be able to say you didn't see it coming. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Harriet Gaddisman. Members of our Jewish community are deeply troubled by the HRC's report of Napa Climate and Experience in Davis. Understanding and combating Islamophobia and anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian discrimination and bias in our community is of vital importance. However, aspects of that report seem more focused on portraying the Jewish community and Zionists as threatening, as opposed to uplifting the Mapa community. Throughout the report, Zionists and local Jewish community members are demonized with no evidence or examples to back these nefarious claims. Overall, the report positions Zionism and Zionists as the primary problem in Davis. For example, using the term angry Zionists, Zionist fascists, and Zionist intimidation. Zionism is the movement for self-determination and statehood for the Jewish people in our ancestral homeland. This report accuses our community members of surveillance and harassment for engaging in constitutionally protected activities, such as attending public events and recording protests. The ACLU repeatedly emphasizes photographers' rights in public spaces. Jews and Zionists have these rights too. By attacking Jews and Zionists for exercising these rights, this report serves to exclude Jews from civic engagements in our own community and subverts our civil liberties. The booth at the farmer's market, there's one that's next to our booth. We have a booth that is about the hostages in Gaza. That's not a political statement. It's requests for help. But next to us, there's another booth that displays blatantly anti-Semitic images and flyers. And yet the HRC is telling our Jewish community that this should all be dismissed as weaponization of anti-Semitism rather than serious threats to Jewish safety. Your report makes it clear that local residents who raise concerns about anti-Semitism will be accused and vilified as bad actors. We request the Commission retract their suggestions at the end of the Napa Climate and Experiences report and publicly acknowledge its flaws and the harm that it has done. And we also request that the City Council look into it because it is a problem for us.
Thank you, Ms. Guzzi. Please, next, thank you for coming.
Spoken.
You can bring it down.
I know I'm short. My name is Anne Forlenza, and I've been a resident in Davis since 2010. I'm an employee at DJUSD and a former staff member at the International School at UC Davis. I am a Jewish member of this community, and I want to share with you that I no longer feel safe in Davis. When I walk downtown at the farmer's market, I'm confronted with signs such as "From the river to the sea, Palestine must be free." While some may view this as a call for liberation, it is important to understand the historical context of this phrase. I am old enough to remember that phrase originated from the PLO, which was a terrorist organization in the 60s and 70s. This slogan has been widely interpreted as a call for the elimination of the State of Israel, and by extension, a threat to all Jews living in and outside of the Middle East. I have also experienced phrases like globalize the Intifada or calls for uprising, which make me and many Jews feel that Jews as a whole are being held responsible for the actions of the State of Israel, a country which I am not a citizen and from which I have no political influence or vote, although I am a proud Zionist. I want to be clear, I do not assume that any Muslim or Arab person in Davis supports extremism or violence. I respect the value and diversity of our community. However, that respect has not always been returned. I have been called a baby killer and a white oppressor by individuals in my own neighborhood, simply because I'm Jewish. One neighbor was flying a Palestinian flag that included a green banner, which is Hamas's emblem. I have seen posters of kidnapped hostages torn from the streets of downtown. I have seen swastikas at Davis Senior High School. I have seen graffiti that says, "Go back to Poland." I am not Polish. My family is not Polish, but we know what that really means. Our city is at risk of becoming a place where slogans and symbols tied to extremist ideologies are normalized, often without full awareness of their implications. Has our community become just useful idiots for the jihadist cause? This environment creates fear for Jewish residents like me. Following the recent murder last night of 2 Jewish individuals in DC, I find myself increasingly fearful. Yet here in Davis, the HRC, does not seem to treat anti-Semitism with the same urgency as other forms of hate. I'm here tonight to say clearly this is real, this is frightening, and it's happening now, and I am afraid. I ask this council, why is anti-Semitism not treated as a hate crime with the same seriousness as racism and other forms of bigotry? If slogans targeting Black, Hispanic, or Asian Americans were shouted in public, there would be a strong response. But when it's about Jews, the silence is deafening. Why do I not count? I urge this council to recognize and address anti-Semitism with the seriousness it deserves. Every resident, regardless of their background, deserves to feel safe and protected in Davis. Thank you. Sorry I went over.
Thank you for sharing comments. Dr. Siegel, good evening.
Mr. Baker, how are you? I'm going to make my comments quite brief. I'm going to start off with saying the names of the 2 individuals who in fact were murdered in Washington, D.C. It has not yet happened. Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, 2 beautiful young people, like my own children, who were gunned down simply for being Jews outside of the Jewish Museum. May their memory be a blessing. And they were gunned down by Elias Rodriguez, who was screaming Free Palestine. In fact, I saw that myself on television. Now, why is this important, and why is this particularly important to this commission? Frankly, it's because reports like the MAPA report encourage this kind of activity. In fact, the MAPA report, in my mind, makes you all complicit if such an event occurred in Davis. It's not just a bad report. If you want my full evaluation, or at least a partial evaluation, read the Davis Vanguard. I have an article in there about the MAPA report. I'd be pleased if you read it. But the fact of the matter is that Elias Rodriguez was not acting in a vacuum. He was acting in this milieu of hate and anti-Semitism. Now, I'm certainly not saying that the Human Relations Commission is the sole group in Davis that is responsible for this, but in fact, the Human Relations Commission should be a group that counters these things and promotes understanding. In fact, with the MAPA report, the exact opposite is true. And I really find that not only personally offensive, but irresponsible on the part of this group who put this report forward. I also want to make a comment, just a very brief comment, about the May 29th Jewish Heritage event. I personally have had no role in planning it, others have. I thank them for doing that. I think it's going to be a spectacular event. And again, thank you to all those who are involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siegel. Good evening.
I'm Aaron Milanese. Dear Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to share my experience and seek your support. When my husband and I moved here from Florida in 2021, it felt like we could finally rest. We had both experienced anti-Hispanic and anti-gay violence over the previous 20 years, and our experience in Davis made us hopeful, allowed us to have greater aspirations for our careers, allowed us to consider housing long-term, allowed us to ponder what it would be like to get married, and God willing, be parents in the future. I was hopeful in ways I didn't know I could be, and I was able to love my partner in ways I had not allowed myself to before. When I came out as a Jew after October 7th, by wearing kippah and talit, everything changed. Although my intention was to provide opportunities for inquiry and to make other Jews feel safe, I experienced smears and stalking on and off campus. This past August 19th, after almost a year of tolerating tirades for global intifada, or intrinsically imprecise violence against global Jewry, our property, and our institutions, the now departing UC President Drake issued a directive to force UC Davis to begin upholding protest policy for the first time. That same day, when a coworker attacked the directive as an effort of the right wing and wealthy on an ecology department listserv, thereby slandering the Jewish students and faculty who were issued a preliminary injunction against UCLA only 3 days prior, I defended the plaintiffs. The listserv includes some 2,500 recipients, both UC-affiliated and unaffiliated Davis residents. In response, I was attacked as a bootlicker, an asshole, disingenuous, litigious, moderate, and of course, Zionist. When I informed my harassers that I forwarded our discussion to the administration and that I was not in fact a Zionist, but rather a non-Zionist German Reform Jew whose family abandoned prayers for a return to Zion some 300 years ago, I was threatened with removal from the listserv if I were to speak to the administration or authorities again. UC Davis Harassment and Discrimination Assistance Prevention Program, HDAP, UC Davis, refused to help me. When I reported my case to the Office of Civil Rights, I was dismissed, provided UC Davis would include my harassment and their disclosure of harassment reports to the OCR at some indefinite time in the future. A few weeks ago, I was interviewed by the DOJ and EEOC about the unpaid planned educational leave I have taken to avoid harassment at UC Davis since this past October. I rarely leave my house, and my husband and I have been unable to maintain many of our friendships. We have much less community now than when we were in Florida, and we are not okay. Thank you for your efforts to ensure the safety of all Davis residents. I look forward to helping you make a neighborly Jerusalem of Davis. And may God provide just rest to Sarah and Yaron, who were murdered at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. yesterday. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming, Aaron. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Leanne Friedman. I am Jewish, but I feel like I have to speak up in support of the Napa report. I had not planned to speak, but I just feel like with what I'm hearing, I am an ally of the Palestinian people, the Arab people who have been harassed. I wrote a letter to the editor shortly after the October 7th, 2023 incident, or massacre, whatever you want to call it. And I was attacked for daring to say that criticizing what Israel was doing to the Palestinian people was not anti-Semitic. That the equation of Judaism with Zionism is a whole issue that could be explored. I would say I'm non-Zionist, I am Jewish, but I think the Napa report is a way for people whose voices have been silenced to be heard. And I think that report, people have said that people are lying. No, people are telling you what they've experienced. And I guess my question is, who is allowed to tell their story, and whose story are we allowed to hear? Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Michael Levy. Anybody can tell their own story, but if this body is going to purport to tell a story for them, this body needs to make sure that what it's reporting is truth. I'm sorry, Chairman, it is your obligation to make sure that what's in your report is truth, especially when the things that come out of a report are inciting violence against people, identified in the report or suggested in the report. When we talk about incitement to violence, what the Jewish community has been complaining about for a year and a half now. And we hear the pro-Palestine movement shout from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free from Jews, and globalize the Intifada. Know that Elias Rodriguez, the murderer of Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lazinski of blessed memory. Mr. Rodriguez is a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation that, in tandem with Cops Off Campus, have created a lot of the havoc in this community over the last year and a half. They've achieved their globalized Intifada. The Intifada, both of them, is characterized by random acts of individualized violence against civilians. Bombs on school buses, bombers with explosive vests in cafes, in garbage cans, knifings of peoples, and yes, just like in Washington, D.C., gunning down 2 innocent people, a beautiful young couple that had the temerity to be at a Jewish function or a Jewish museum. And yes, innocent civilians get killed in these things too. This is the Intifada, the globalized Intifada that has been called for a year and a half. One only need to read the intentions of Cops Off Campus in its own published manifesto about its intentions with the encampment last year to understand what's going on. It's very clear. Or to listen to any of the activists who've shouted it. In the very last 2 paragraphs of Cops Off Campus's manifesto, they state, scaling out violence directs us to the networks of solidarity that exist beyond our campus, connecting the encampment movement to the larger struggle for a free Palestine. This broader vision is most apparent when we consider the international scope of this struggle, the fact that we must act in solidarity with people on the other side of the globe, but it also applies to those directly outside the university's walls whose exclusion through policing defines the very university as a separate space. It goes on that movements to grow in mass mobilization equal the scale of the horrors it opposes must eventually be taken up by the people in its originators have not met and may never meet. These people will necessarily act autonomously, calibrating their strategy based on their own capacity and local conditions. The movement does not have to be centralized. It can embrace these autonomous actions as the vehicle by which the struggle can spread, even when these actions assume risk and face repression that other formations within the movement are unwilling or unable to do themselves. This is online. It is a call for individualized violence against Jews in our community. That's by Cops Off Campus and PSL. If you'd like an Intifada, you're getting one. You need to stand up to it and stop it. The war in Gaza is not here. We in Davis, all of us, deserve to live in Davis in peace.
I'm not going to
Thank
let you
you.
go over, but thank you. I appreciate it. Please, could you come forward? Thank you for being here.
Good evening, my name is Scott Stewart, longtime resident in Davis, and I wanted to say that it's a difficult time, and it's made difficult by a lot of atrocity and harm that everyone is experiencing. I am someone who's grown up in Davis, and I remember going to this junior high and high school, and there was a group of young white people who regularly used the N-word. You know, this is not, you know, a safe place a lot of the time. I was not given to that kind of racism or parody, really, watching the environment at the time, transitioning from the 70s into the 80s. And I just want to say that the nature of our community is something that we need to have and be able to hold our Jewish residents, I am one of them, and respect the progression that needs to happen about the understanding of creating space as we deal with what I feel is an extreme version of the truth when it comes to what Israel represents, and also the understanding that there are secular Jews who have grown up in an entirely different tradition. I'm not criticizing the Jewish American Heritage Month celebration at all. Good for that. What I am saying is that there are people who are being obstructed for protesting, thrown in jail, they're being doxxed, they're being put into a place where they would be perceived dangerous if they were allowed to use their voice. That is what MAPA has done, is to create a voice. There is not a place in that document that says we are in elevating this to harm Jewish people. There are Jewish people in the report asking for understanding. We need to be open to that understanding. That's what this place is. We are a democracy as we hold on to it desperately. The idea that there were 2 young people gunned down in DC is horrific. There were 2 young women gunned down in Wisconsin 2 days ago in their dorm room. They don't even know who did it with a gun. Their names were Helly Helms and Kelsey Martin. One of them was gender fluid. I'm just saying, there's a lot of hate out there. We don't need it, and we don't need to point at each other. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Good evening. I think we have one more person coming forward. Welcome.
Can you hear me? Or do I need to make it lower?
Yeah, I think so.
Kate, I just want to thank you and Davis Joint Unified School District for all that you're doing to combat identity-based harm. Unfortunately, I feel like it's just growing. I'm going to just speak to one elementary school. My kid faces it on at least a weekly basis, if not more. He hears language that's based against other friends and also himself. Slang like, you're gay, you know, the N-word, you're a terrorist. Those things are being thrown around mostly outside of the purview of the teachers, usually at recess, at lunch, where it can be less monitored. It's affecting a lot of the kids at the school. My kid in particular, he does not like hearing those things about his friends, about himself, and he wants to speak up, but at the same time, he's afraid to speak up. They've had lots of conversations with the principal at rallies that, you know, they're trying to address it, but it just seems like it's become so rampant at school, and it's so sad to hear that it's happening at our elementary schools, where it's just normal, and the kids don't feel like the adults are really doing anything about it. And what it comes down to is, can they do anything about it? You can't monitor kids all the time. They're gonna say things because they've heard things, and, you know, I know that there's things going on in the world, but I think we also need to kind of look within our community here in Davis and look at how we can start making bridges and opening conversations instead of like throwing words at each other, and working on how we can come together and hearing that we're all hurting in some way. You know, I guarantee you everybody in this room has felt hate and hurt at least at some point in their life. Maybe today, maybe multiple times today. How can we be a better community and reach out to each other and say, I see your hurt. Can I do anything? And then have people reflect back that they see our hurt, even if it means that it's acknowledging that we've done something, right? So taking that moment and acknowledging, hey, I did something that hurt you, I'm so sorry for doing that. It doesn't negate that I hurt somebody. And the same goes on the other side too, right? If someone acknowledges that they hurt me, it goes towards bridging our community together. And I hope that we as a community here in this room and we as a greater community of Davis can work on making those bridges, having those conversations, so that we can be representative for our children and hope that they do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Ms. Lynn. more person coming forward. Welcome. Good evening.
I'm going to keep this short. My name is Margaret, and I think all of you have heard so much, several times, about what's happening on campus, what's happening in the city, the schools, churches, the synagogues. It's a disease. We've heard so many what's happening. So I'm just wondering, can you come up with a concrete action plan? Like, we will do this, we can do that, instead of just talking at you, but what actions can be taken to address any of this, you know, instead of just floating in the air? Think tank, something, get some feedback from anybody, you know, we could do this, you know, actions, even 3 actions, 1 action, something to take action instead of just, that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you for coming. All right, I don't see any further public comment at this period. Thank you for those who have spoken. That, I think, concludes our general public comment period. That's item number 4. We are going to move on then to item 5, which is the consent calendar. There's one item on the consent calendar, and that is approval of the minutes of the last meeting. We did get some public comment on the very nicely done meeting minutes. But I just wanted to note that I think that there were some names that I at least recognized as maybe not entirely quite accurately spelled in the report, and I can share those with you sort of separately. But does anyone else have any sort of suggestions or additions, corrections, etc. for the minutes of the last meeting?
So I would just like to follow up on Carrie's comment and ask if there's any interest in revisiting my request from last time to submit a minority opinion.
Okay. We are now on approval of the minutes, so we're going to keep it the discussion on approval of the minutes. Do you have any suggestions for revisions to the meeting minutes from last?
No.
Okay. Anyone else have comments, suggestions, additions, corrections, etc. to the meeting minutes? Okay. If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Motion by Felix. Is there a second?
Well, second.
Second by Edgar. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And the motion carries. Thank you very much. And Amir, we will get back to your point if you want to bring that up when we get to committee updates. We can discuss it further. So we are now then at our regular items. Unless there's public comment on the minutes, which, forgive me, I think I passed over, but.
Kevin, we normally do those during regular public comments, so I think you got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trying to be inclusive. Item number 6 is our regular item, our series of regular items. The first item here is 6A. This is discussion on the Sanctuary City Ordinance, and I just wanted to note that we have allocated an hour for this item because of its importance and complexity, and I think it is absolutely deserving of a thorough discussion. But I do want to try to keep us on track so that we stay within the allotted time. Our last couple of meetings have gotten pretty late, and I'm hoping we can finish tonight by our normal 8:30 adjournment time in consideration of people's schedules, especially our hardworking city staff. But we do have an hour allotted for this if we need it, and I will then turn it over to introduction by the committee, and who wants to get us started?
I can do that.
Thank you, Felix.
As Kevin just alluded to, we are here to talk about sanctuary city status. So I'm just going to read off some notes that I wrote down here, and then we'll continue on the report. So the city of Davis was originally declared a city of sanctuary in 1986. The city council reaffirmed the city's sanctuary status in 2007 and again in 2014. With each reaffirmation, the city council updated the original resolution. The question of what it means to be a sanctuary city is frequently asked. Simply stated, it means that our police officers or other city officials during the course of duty do not take documented status into account when they encounter individuals in Davis. Documented status is not a factor in interactions or provisions of city services or access to city facilities. Documented status is a federal, not a local issue. The sanctuary city police policy is only applied within city limits. It does not apply to Yolo County or to other jurisdictions. While sanctuary city protections are often discussed in the context of immigrants, the policies they implement can also benefit other residents by promoting community, trust, and trust in public institutions. The goal is to ensure that all residents, regardless of their immigration status, can access essential services and feel safe reporting crimes without fear of deportation or retaliation. Immigrants, particularly undocumented immigrants, are at risk due to various factors, including the threat of deportation, exploitation by employers, and the potential for discrimination. These risks can impact their material, relational, and subjective well-being. Fear of deportation can deter immigrants from reporting crimes or seeking essential services, with increasing scrutiny by the current administration seeking to round up and deport as many individuals without due process as they can. We believe that now more than ever, our city needs to reaffirm its commitment to our undocumented community. However, we can go a step further. By becoming a sanctuary to not just immigrants, but LGBTQ plus individuals, especially transgender members of our community and others who are looking for protections from the current administration's goals to criminalize states and individuals seeking gender-affirming care. Reproductive care is also at risk throughout our country, and we want to make sure that people seeking care feel welcome, not just in our state, but within our city. And the spirit of sanctuary policies also aligns with ensuring the safety and well-being of people with disabilities. While sanctuary policies are often framed as protecting immigrants, their effects extend beyond this group. By promoting trust, improving public safety, and fostering social inclusion, they can benefit all residents of the community. So we would like for the city to reaffirm its sanctuary status once again and consider passing legislation such as an ordinance similar to that of other cities, particularly the city of San Francisco.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Felix. And
We've got,
more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
all four of us are going to talk.
Okay, what I wanted to do was kind of introduce the item, allow for public comment. But if there's like more introduction,
I think we should give the
Let's do- yeah, let's do
whole
it.
report,
Okay.
the whole sort of opening.
you guys have got the choreography. I didn't know it. Okay, take it away.
Kate is next.
Okay.
I think my job is to talk about just the existing supports for immigrant families and students in the school district. And to say that when in 2016 the district established the We All Belong statement, but also clarified what our policies were around staff behaviors and responses to the presence of immigration officials on our campuses. That's been reaffirmed this year. All of our staff are informed in terms of that. We have a commitment to protecting spaces for our students so that they feel safe to learn, they are willing to come to school, they feel like they can go to school and know that their parents are going to be there when they get back. And so our policies both clarify for staff that immigration officials are not welcome on our campuses, but also that we have procedures, very clear, specific procedures, contacting authorities in the district for when they are. I think I'll just leave it at that for now. Is that enough for this?
I know, and Connor might talk about how this could be expanded, but I know In the time that I've been a teacher, which is 12 years, I think toward the beginning of that time, we stopped tracking citizenship status at all of our students.
Right, we require, sometimes a passport is the document needed in order to establish the birth date of a child. And when that is provided by a family in order to document that, we document the date, we cut it, and then we give the information back. We don't keep any of that information. It's immaterial to us. It is our legal duty to educate children in our town, and we do that.
So as a teacher, the people in the front office, nobody knows what the immigration status is of any student. So even if we were asked by ICE on campus, we literally would not know the answer.
And it's not in our electronic records either. So, yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, so as part of the subcommittee, we've brainstormed some possible ideas. One of the main purposes of this discussion is to try to get broader ideas from the community that we might have missed. But one of the ideas that I have heard from a few people, which ties into Kate's point about how the schools address immigration officials and possible immigration officials coming to schools, is trying to expand these types of policies and procedures to other institutions around town. So two of the biggest categories of institutions would probably be religious institutions and businesses. So thinking about ways that different institutions can come up with plans for how they can protect immigrants, whether it's workers or customers or whoever is visiting those institutions, coming up with plans and policies before any possible incident occurs so that these procedures are in place and people are able to protect the immigrant community as much as possible. So thinking about how the city could potentially facilitate trainings for different institutions around town on coming up with their own, localized to that institution policies and procedures about what would work best for them.
So as we're meeting, the four of us, several times and trying to figure out what we would like to see Davis do differently, or do we just want them to the city council to kind of restate the proclamation under the new circumstances, or is there anything that could be expanded toward? We realize there's so many people in this community already trying to do things and with so many different perspectives on it. And we came up with the idea of, A, trying to invite as many people as we could to give us feedback, either in writing or by attending this, this agenda item tonight. And we came up with 4 specific questions that we wanted to ask. And if I was really smart, I'd have those questions in front of me. I think maybe I did. Oh, great, there they are. There are the questions. So, how can Davis strengthen its commitment to the immigrant community? What resources and safe spaces are you aware of in the community that serve the immigrant community? How can the city of Davis strengthen its commitment to be a sanctuary to other marginalized groups? And is there anything else you think we should know? So we were able to send those questions out to a good number of people. We've gotten responses from an immigration lawyer, from Un Cafecito, which is Latino women in the community who meet regularly and are able to provide feedback on how various members of their community are being affected. And they actually put together a little survey with our questions, and so we got multiple responses from them. And then from Daniela Tellis, who is from the undocumented student resource center on campus. And so we've gotten lots of good information, many shout outs to Empower YOLO. Apparently they are at the top of everybody's list. Lots of comments about how helpful churches are. The hospitals are really responsive to people and that people feel safe going to our hospitals. We are very interested in looking into a little bit more of what hospitals are doing that might be replicable in, even in small businesses or in other places in our community. And then we've got a
series of suggestions and ideas already. Lots of people were able to mention things that they already feel like the city of Davis is doing and that they see that the city of Davis is trying. And they had some very thoughtful responses about, because things are changing so fast at the federal level, that some kind of publication that let them know if anything is changing here on a regular basis would be very helpful. Something like official that said, no, these are still the rules here. Your kids are still safe at school, you know, that sort of thing. So we've got a list of things that came in the last, I'd say 3 or 4 days that we're still hauling through. But I think our hope now was just to open it up to anybody here who could provide us with any more insights, any great brainstorms or other ideas, so that we could then proceed with a little bit more diverse set of information toward thinking about what we would like our sort of recommendations around this to be.
And then before that too, before we open it up to the public, I also wanted to talk about, in doing some of our research as to what other cities, other counties, other states are doing in terms of sanctuary, we came across an organization called Welcoming America, which is a nonprofit that certifies cities, states, organizations by providing them with a framework of things to do in order to guide them in developing resources for undocumented individuals. We wanted to know what a welcoming city was. So a welcoming city is a community that intentionally creates an inclusive environment for all residents, particularly immigrants and refugees, by implementing policies and practices that promote their integration and well-being. These cities focus on ensuring access to essential services, equitable opportunities, and civic participation, while also strengthening relationships between law enforcement and immigrant communities. We wanted to also reach out to the City Council and the City of Davis about looking into becoming a welcoming city or welcoming city status, and looking into Welcoming America in terms of what steps they need to take to receive that certification.
Well, that was a great overview, a great introduction. I think we are now at a point where we want to kind of take that next step, as you suggested, Felix, to open it up for input, both in terms of reaction to anything that has been shared so far, or other ideas that folks may have on this subject of protecting the immigrants in our community, and particularly the undocumented folks who are so much at risk. Good evening, Mr. Hirsch.
Good evening, Alan Hirsch. On the Social Justice Committee at Havering, part of my comments will be relevant because our focus this year is on immigrants and refugees. The opposite of a safe place, sanctuary community, is a Stasi community where your neighbors riff on others. You don't know who's going to treat you. We need to defend and oppose that sensibility. How do you know about your neighbors? Most people don't know their neighbors. So we need to create a sense that you can trust your neighbors, you can trust where you're at, you can trust the store people, the strangers, the stores, and whatnot. So it sounds like I'm blowing my horn, but basically my lawn signs, wherever you're from, you're glad you're your neighbor. If we could get hundreds of those out in the neighborhood, that would send a message this is a safer place. Maybe we should do more of that. And I think that's an interesting sort of idea. I'm doing it, but there's one person saying that, right? How do we basically get our churches to sign as a safe place? Have those signs up there, get them involved. Maybe someone approaching the newly formed Davis Interfaith Alliance, which I'm a co-enabler of that. If someone could join that and get churches, get them involved, and invisibly, because these people who are probably in the margin are very invisible and they don't really know people. How do we network and have signs that I can make this a safe place? And I think we also need to sell the idea of sanctuary community. And the other thing we should do is also emphasize that Davis voted 89 or 90% for Biden, for Harris. So this is not a Trumpist community. We should tell people that and brag about it, because that makes people sense, gee, I can probably trust 90% of the people in this community not to be this thing. And we also, to those people who are safe like me, sell me what's the advantage of me to be living in the sanctuary community. And the real reason is that people can turn to law enforcement. They don't need to go underground. When the sheriffs and the police got together, when ICE concern came up, they said, we need to have people trust us, otherwise we can't do our job. There's so few, we need the neighbors to trust us. So we need to sell that message. Being a sanctuary city is making Davis a safe place for everybody, not the people who have one of the things. Everyone can turn to the police. People who need to go underground. That's really important. So those are two ideas. I hope that's helpful. This is a very difficult thing, but fear is an abstract. We need to be visible, we need to be loud, and we need to basically reinforce it. We need to say it over and over again to it drips down to everybody. This is a safe place. You can trust the institution in this place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hirsch. Further commenter? Good evening, Mr. Horton.
Good evening. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Dylan, chair of the Police Accountability Commission. It's interesting being in these meetings or in this room when I don't have responsibilities. So first of all, I just want to say I applaud y'all's work here, figuring out how we can do more in this area. I think that's really important in this time. 3 points. One, it was a part of my Tom High Win sort of comments just earlier this week that I really do agree with Commissioner Gorman's sort of comments about how do we expand these institutional policies to other institutions, and I would add apartment complexes, to the list of sort of businesses and other things that we would look to make sure have, policies of how to respond to these sorts of situations in our community. Forgive me, I'm not sure if this is a part of the current sanctuary city ordinance, but I know it's an aspect of the sanctuary state policy that we've discussed with the Chief of Police and the Police Accountability Commission, that beyond restricting officers from asking about immigration status, it also severely restricts the degree to which DPD, for instance, can collaborate with almost the wide spectrum of federal enforcement authorities, immigration authorities, but also beyond that, except for like really extenuating circumstances. So I don't know if that's a part of this sanctuary city ordinance, but I know it's a part of the state policy, and I think that might strengthen it. I had a conversation with at the Chavez event about maybe including trans and gender non-conforming people in this expansion effort. Similarly, in what I just said about the state sanctuary policy, my understanding is that with regard to Sacramento's trans sanctuary policy, that it's also beyond asking about status, it's also restricting the degree to which, in that case, Sacramento PD could interact with other state authorities who would be, Florida, looking to come in and engage in their own enforcement activities in the city of Davis or in the city of Sacramento, but also federal authorities that might be, changing their policies and how they're trying to come after trans and gender non-conforming people. So just a couple of things that might help expand. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dylan. Appreciate it. Good evening. Welcome.
My name is Nancy Lazarus. I wasn't planning to speak, so I didn't bring my information, but there's a fundraiser for YIN. It's YOLO Immigrant Internet. I'm sorry. Does somebody Interfaith Immigration Network on June 14th, and it's to raise money for promoting or helping immigrants with a variety of needs that they have. And they haven't had one for many years, and they really need a lot of money to be able to help these people. And, oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's a flyer that they put out, and it's 5:30 to 9:30 on June 14th at the Home Arts Building at Yolo County Fairgrounds in Woodland. There are tickets that are available online at an event, or you can put, I'm sure you can put YIN on the computer and find it. They need help setting things up on June 13th and 14th, if you're at all interested in cutting vegetables or setting tables or whatever, you can also do that. It's going to be a great event. The tickets are $75 and they're less for children. I don't remember exactly what the number is, but it's a very important event and I hope all of you come. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Who can I give this to? Somebody here. Maybe we can put it in the...
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good evening, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Alex Walzer. I want to preface what I'm saying here, that I'm deeply embarrassed to have to stand here and feel like I'm begging to be included and protected in my own city. I'm trans and I'm autistic and I'm disabled and I feel like I'm falling between the cracks here. The labor market unemployment rate for autistics is 87%. For my disability, it's 40%. I've been self-employed for the past 15 years, largely because I'm trans and I can't access employment from that angle either. And so I own a business here in Davis, trying to implement disability justice as a massage therapist. The transgender violence in this community has resulted in situations where I'm having to have bomb threat contingency plans in my office. I've been denied emergency services at our hospitals. The last 7 years, I've been working part-time as a PhD student at UC Davis to study community economic development. That has included being part of the executive committee for the Yolo County Basic Income Pilot Project. And the last year, I have spent time studying how to create sanctuary cities, not just the bureaucratic element of sanctuary cities, but how do we actually create places that are safe for the people who are being targeted. That means conditions of economic and political, social and psychological safety. I have struggled with these myself due to my marginalized identities, and I found myself the past few months feeling like I am either going to become homeless or I need to seek asylum somewhere else out of my own country. My funding has been cut at UC Davis because of these policies against trans people. Just yesterday, I learned that I'm on Medicaid and I'm going to lose my access to my hormones and could be forced to detransition, and this will kill me. What terrifies me the most is about homelessness, because California Prop 1 that was passed last year is nearly identical to the legislation, from my understanding, what started the American eugenics movement. Here, Northern California was one of the hot spots where the most institutionalization and horrible things happened. Both of my parents are survivors of the American eugenics movement. And the UC Davis Mind Institute is run by a person who is trained in autistic conversion therapy, the same as gay conversion therapy, started by the same person. I am more than enthusiastic about expanding our understanding of what sanctuary cities are, but we need to go one step further and think about what it means to create a safe place for us to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Please, come forward. Evening.
Okay, good evening, Commission. My name is Spear. I've been a resident of Davis for 6.5 years. I originally came here to go to grad school, and then I've graduated and stayed. I use they, them pronouns, and I am, on one hand, very glad to be part of this community in a whole lot of different ways, including meeting people like Connor, who's been really great to a lot of the work I've been doing recently. But I really appreciate the comments of the resident before, and I would like to further it myself as someone who's first time attending this commission meeting. There is a lot of political work that can be done, which was referenced earlier, which is a really great effort and a really good place to start on a bureaucratic or legal level. However, I believe that there should be an acknowledgement of both what I would call a rapid response network as well as a slow response network to being a sanctuary city. And what I mean by that is a slow response network is things like these committee meetings that take time, that take commitment, that take public comment, and then take votes and motions that will establish legal precedent in this city and for our community, which is great on an official level. But for example, immigrant people coming to this community or trans people within this community, including people like myself, there is a need for a faster response. And what I mean by that is, if you're a subscriber to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that includes components like furniture, like food, like clothing, like housing, like a sense of physical safety, because some of those networks increase your defensibility within that community. And so an extra step that could be done is an acknowledgement by this commission to promote rapid response networks or faster action networks at the same time as trying to build and trying to commit to slower action networks and more political means. So by combining, I believe, in my opinion, both, we can have a more defensible community for both trans people like myself, as well as immigrant communities and other such marginalized groups by our federal political administration currently. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Spirit. Okay. Is there anyone else, excuse me, that would like to be heard on this issue? I also want to, excuse me, allow for members to call folks back up. This is a public forum kind of format as opposed to sort of a strict kind of public comment period. So I think it's appropriate that we have some dialogue if there's an interest in doing that. But let me then first turn to non-committee members of the commission and ask if there are questions, thoughts, etc. Amir, Edgar, and our ex officio folks too, so Amir. We'll go to Amir first and then
So,
to others.
I guess that to me, it would have been helpful to try. So right now, to me, it seems like one impossibly to chew kind of problem. And what I would like to try and do is to divide that into actionable items, identifying first of all specific problems. Because right now it's just very big, amorphous problem that you kind of have to attack multiple different tiers of education, of educating our community, and it's various kind of infrastructure, and it's daunting, it's big. So what I would like to have a better understanding, what are the more immediate kind of needs, what are the low-hanging fruits, where do those our community members really suffer specifically? That would make things easier for me to think of potential solutions.
So did you want to weigh in, or no pressure? I wondered if you had your hand up.
No, I didn't, but I guess I can add just discussions I've had with classmates. Remember particularly one, I was talking to a classmate who was concerned that his visa would be expiring soon. He wasn't sure what he was going to do about that, and was looking for resources just in the community, because he's here without his parents, not really sure where to turn, to figure out how to stay here longer. So providing students just with more education about those sort of processes, because people like this friend of mine just who are here without their families really often are lacking in resources, don't really know where to turn.
Right. So that's one possible action item, maybe. Good, thank you. Edgar, please.
So I was wondering if the committee had looked at the potential threats from current administration and the different threats that he's made to sanctuary cities, and if we actually have maybe steps in place. I know there's lawsuits from San Francisco and Santa Clara counties that have put a pause on those threats, but some of the main threats that were listed directly from the administration was to develop mechanisms to prevent undocumented immigrants from receiving federal public benefits, penalizing universities, providing in-state tuition to undocumented students, creating quote-unquote mechanisms to hold accountable willfully and unlawfully directing the obstruction of criminal law by local officials. So, I mean, these are actions he's already put in place, but are on hold because of lawsuits. So things that, like, are there things that we can, at least knowing that this is what the administration is doing right now, if things were not to be on hold, you know, do we have things put in place? Is that something we're considering so that we know how to react, as well as, say, our public institutions? You know, if students lose their funding, then, you know, a lot of students are losing their funding right now. But, you know, in this situation, undocumented students, you know, what is put in place? So, you know, are things being done at UCD? Are we doing things? Other environments where undocumented students and community members existed. So, was that part of the discussion? Does that need to be part of it? You know, because to me, it made me immediately think, like, I knew there were threats already made. And so how do we act as a city that's probably on that list? You know, what do we do?
So, first things first, to address Amir's concern, we are hoping that the city will reaffirm the resolution that was last reaffirmed in 2021, particularly in enacting the things that were included in that resolution, such as encouraging the city staff to provide outreach about Davis being a sanctuary city, adding signage to the city to demonstrate the city's commitment to its entire community, regardless of identity, and communicating the resolution to local, state, and national representatives. So we're hoping that at the very first step, that our city council will reaffirm the resolution. We did consider, Edgar, the potential harm that can come to the city or litigation when it comes to federal funding. We talked about it at a very basic level. We are hoping to collaborate with some of our community members who are a little bit more knowledgeable when it comes to law. So we've reached out to some immigration attorneys and people who are a little bit more knowledgeable when it comes to that subject matter. Some have reached out or responded to our survey. They talked about San Francisco and how their ordinance has held up in court, and using that as a framework for our own. You know, we're kind of at the very beginning stages of planning. This is sort of us reaching out to the community and hoping that we can get some more information from the community to help us out, and guiding us further. Welcoming America also provides a framework for what our city can do in providing, so if you look at Welcoming America, the welcoming standard, they provide a framework, so not just joining their organization, but they provide you with a list of things that you can do as a city to even qualify as a welcoming city. And I think that looking at that list, looking at this criteria, would be really helpful for us and to study this a little bit further before we present this fully to the city council. Would be really important.
Yeah, so we got I believe it was part of the written public comment, that mentioned how related to the San Francisco ordinance, that state officials have been fairly good in California, at least so far, about legally defending sanctuary cities and other related actions of cities and other jurisdictions. So obviously there's definitely still possible threats from the federal administration for being a sanctuary city, but it does seem like there's quite a bit of legal protection that would come from the state level if needed, if some attempt to impose negative consequences on Davis did occur. We also did get some comment about possibly turning the resolution into an ordinance to make it a bit more enforceable and like truly part of like city policies. So that is a possible concrete action that could be done in a relatively quick and straightforward way, is to have it be very similar but an ordinance instead of a resolution. And then something that we heard from a lot of the people from Un Cafecito is just having more outreach around like immigrant rights, basically. So doing Know Your Rights outreach to the community. So that is also a possible concrete action that would be relatively straightforward to implement. There's been a lot of Know Your Rights trainings around the area recently, but I wonder if the city could help promote some of the future ones. And also a lot of those Know Your Rights trainings have been about Negro Watch, so kind of monitoring ICE activity if it's seen. But there's definitely other rights that are important for people to know about as well, such as around visas and the various legal aspects to that. So I do wonder if the city could help facilitate those types of trainings and or just promote them when they occur as a fairly, again, low-hanging fruit type of thing to start with.
I just want to like reflect back a couple things that I heard that I really appreciated from our guest tonight and from the things that I've read, which I want to think about more as a subcommittee. But I really heard that a sanctuary city not only does what it can to protect immigrants from ICE, but also helps to educate people about their rights and helps to provide them with the basic living necessities. And I think, housing is notoriously expensive in Davis, and I hope that's something that's going to be, we're going to have a few more options on the table soon to approve for new housing in Davis, and then just other ways for people to get their basic needs met. And then I also heard from two people here tonight, which I know is reflective of many of my high school students and many other people in Davis, that in the same way that immigrants feel threatened by this current administration, more so than they did before, so do trans people. And I'm inclined, more than I was before this meeting, to just really think more about all the ways in which we need to be a sanctuary city for larger populations of people. I think I told the subcommittee I was in Seattle for a workshop for work recently, and there was this newspaper that was everywhere. It was put out by the city of Seattle, and it just had all the information we're sort of talking about here: Know Your Rights, where you could go, what are like local churches that are very friendly to immigrants, what are local organizations that you could contact, how can you get basic needs met, I love the like rapid response versus slower response. I think you said it more respectfully than that. I don't remember what you said exactly, but like, I like the idea of sort of thinking about those things in two ways. Is there like a rapid network that is already being established? I know there is some through the community of Culture of Community group. I know is trying to set up some rapid response stuff, but how could we partner with them to be supportive in that, so that there's like literally a signal chat that's like, go to this house right now, we think something might go down there, where people could just show up and be a barrier. And then, the more systematic stuff that takes longer. So I like the idea of sort of teasing out what could go in each of those categories and how we can push those things forward. So I think those are the main things I heard that I want us to keep thinking about. I don't know if anybody else on the subcommittee, and I tried to take notes of what people said so we can look at it.
Yeah, so there is also the NorCal Resist, like rapid response networks. NorCal Resist does a lot of good work in a lot of ways, but especially around the immigrant community, including Negro Watch, but also like accompaniment for like migrants and refugees, and even putting people in apartments and like furnishing the apartments and whatnot when needed. So that is another important resource. And speaking of those types of things, we heard a few public comments tonight about this, but again, something else that came up in the Cafecito responses, which I was not actually expecting to be as prominent as it was, is the idea of having access to different services being part of a sanctuary or welcoming city. So things like housing and transportation and education and those types of things were brought up by multiple people, both today and in some of the written feedback that we got. And then finally, I would very much support thinking of ways that the city could be a sanctuary for different marginalized communities experiencing different forms of oppression, especially when it comes to the federal government and state violence. So I would support having policies around police not collaborating with agencies from other states, especially states that are known to target trans people and people seeking reproductive health care and those types of things. I also do think that this ties into notions of surveillance as well. So some of the cameras and stuff that the city has approved recently, I have some mixed feelings on, because I do think that there are ways that those things can be used negatively, especially in this type of context, where, for instance, if there was someone coming from out of state to get reproductive health care or gender-affirming health care, and their information is recorded on one of these devices, and like the department gets subpoenaed from a law enforcement agency in another state, would they be required to provide that info versus if the info is not there to begin with, kind of like with the school district, not even like keeping info on immigration status.
Right. Good question, good thoughts. Excuse me. I have a couple questions as well. You know, one of the things that we've heard is, you know, about the city's existing sanctuary policy or the resolution. And I was just kind of pulling it up here. It's part of the materials in the packet. Thank you guys for collecting these things and putting them together for us. I think, Felix, you mentioned that one of the things that is in the resolution is encouraging city staff to provide outreach about Davis being a city of sanctuary. And I guess I was curious if we know anything, and I don't know if our city staff here can tell us any more, but do we know anything about what currently happens in that regard with respect to outreach that city staff provide?
I personally haven't found any in my research. I think that it would be, and maybe this is something for us to discuss too in our website subcommittee. But our page, you know, where it talks about it being a sanctuary city, should have some information about this. It's pretty limited in what's offered there. I mean, it just lists the resolutions, the previous and current. In links to those, but it doesn't really provide any much more information about what the city's doing. Yeah, Carrie's gonna correct me here.
No, I'm actually not going to correct you. I was just going to let you guys know that a number of years ago, the HRC did create these informational cards that have been, you know, placed throughout City Hall, and They are probably still there, and they probably definitely need an update. So I can share that with the subcommittee at some point to see if that's something you might be interested in revisiting and updating. And they were disseminated to the library and to various places throughout town. So
I see you trying to downgrade the newspaper I was proposing to a car. But yes, please send it along.
Thank you, I will do so.
Okay, so related to that, thank you, that was very helpful. And I was wondering, there's another provision here with regard to adding signage in the city to demonstrate the city's commitments to the entire community regardless of identity. And I think I'm probably not picking up on that, but
I let you know that I believe it's in 3 different places as you enter the city, and it's as part of the population sign. They've added something else, additional signage underneath, your standard population sign. I can't remember the exact words that it uses, but it says something about, welcome, or Davis is a sanctuary city as you're entering. So I do believe that those, when this resolution was redone in 14, those signs were added at that point.
I see. Okay. Thank you for that. It's helpful. Well, I guess I'm also curious. There's a ton of questions. I'll try to limit it. But I've heard that the San Francisco ordinance is something that the committee has looked at and considered and is thinking that might be a useful model. And I'm just wondering if you could say anything briefly about how it differs from existing City of Davis policy. Do we have any sort of sense of what we would be doing differently if we were going in that direction?
Yeah, well, I mean, for one, it's an ordinance, which comes with its, the difference between an ordinance and a resolution. So it provides you with more enforcement in terms of what city staff, police should be doing. But no, we would have to do more research into that. We've also heard about El Cerrito as a potential one that we should look into. A couple different cities.
Okay. I'm going to, in light of the time, I just want to check out one other question, and that is in the materials, it also indicates that not only police officers, but other city officials are not to take document status into account, and it's not a factor in interactions or provisions of city services or access to city facilities, which I think is actually the appropriate policy. But I guess I was a little bit confused because when I read the resolution, I didn't see that kind of statement, a policy statement there. I know that the city police department, as Dylan was referring to a minute ago, has, as part of its policy manual, policy 423, which is, I think, consistent with the California Values Act, SB 54, regarding police cooperation with ICE. But I don't know of a policy that otherwise restricts other city officials. And, I think it's something that when we were looking at the civil rights ordinance, we thought was worth suggesting to the city to kind of make that policy more clear. But I guess I'm just wondering if we know of the source of that kind of general policy.
And it was kind of part of our larger question too, of like the school district is so careful not to collect anybody's identifying information. Like for city employees, one of the things that Cafecito lady said was creating a list. Oh no, I think it was from the undocumented center on campus. Was could we provide a list of jobs that you could do if you're undocumented or that did not require you to show your documentation or something like that. And so it does make me just kind of wonder what our city does in terms of documentation policies, and are we tracking employees, and if you want to go reserve something, do you have to show an identification of some kind? And so maybe is the model the school district's doing with just not tracking that information at all replicable at the city level, or like Connor said before with small businesses and in other ways, so we can just all not know.
Okay.
and a few times when knowledge is not.
That's hard to say as a teacher, I
It was
think, right?
hard.
Yeah, no, I take the point. Okay, well, I think this has been a great discussion, and I really appreciate all the work that the committee has been doing. It's a really complex issue, and as Edgar is reminding us, also one that, you know, faces sort of potential challenges in terms of, you know, the federal government having a different view about what policies are appropriate for the treatment of immigrants. Does the committee have kind of what it was looking for in terms of further feedback at this point, or should we conclude then on this item, and the committee will continue to deliberate further?
Yes, I think so. I was just going to say, to add, well, if we're going to try to be broader about this, then we will be talking about gender as well. Are we, in what ways is gender being tracked, and is that necessary or important? I mean, it's not. It is. I will say it's not necessarily important to be tracking anybody's sex or gender. So, are there ways that we're currently doing that in Davis that we need to not?
Right, or gender identity expression.
Amy, can I also suggest an addition? Needs a somebody voice. I think we also heard from some of our commenters about disability, and I think this larger question of the violence of the state and targeting people that, and so just to make sure we include that. And yeah, which, yeah, let's leave there.
Okay, good thought. Thank you, Kate. All right, well then, let us wrap up then on this item, and thank again the committee for all of its work so far, and I think continuing work to come. And with that, we will move on then. Actually, before we do that, I'm noticing that the time is right up against 8:30. I have failed in my effort to keep us.
I would like to make a motion that we continue the meeting for up to, but not more than 30 minutes to cover the rest of the agenda.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Amir. Thank you, Amir. And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, we are then ready to move on without further ado to committee updates. This is item 6B. And I guess I just want to announce at the top here that, as we all know, these are ad hoc committees, and we have had some of them in operation for a few months now. As Carrie was mentioning earlier, we will have some folks who are potentially transitioning from the committee, and potentially some new appointees. In June, we will be not meeting in July, and then we'll resume in August. And I think it would be appropriate to see if we can conclude reports on our existing subcommittees at our next meeting. Of course, subject to the new group potentially reestablishing some or all of them when we reconvene in August. Thinking that, just as a kind of a general announcement, that if folks on our various committees are able to kind of prepare and present any kind of proposal or final report by next month, that would be helpful, I think. Again, keeping in mind that I think there's an ongoing interest in, for example, the sanctuary city issue, and I think what we want to do is try to conclude the business of the existing committees, and then when we reconvene in August, those of us who are going to be continuing and any new members will be looking at what new committees, or whether people want to change membership on existing committees if they're continuing.
So I wonder if on our next agenda, I'll say out loud, we should make an effort to firm up our work plan for next year. And like, if we're gonna dissolve all of these committees, let's be really clear on which items still continue on our work plan. And then I wonder if we want to consider either having like that first initial meeting where we just meet new members but don't have a lot of business to do, and or a work plan sort of meeting before our August meeting, or I just want to float that.
I was just going to suggest that for your August meeting, I mean, we can do an introductory meeting. We had that special meeting last year for new members, for everybody to get together, which worked well. But I would suggest sort of holding off on, any sort of work plan discussion next month, since we're going to have people leaving and new people coming on, and it would be great to have the new people coming on be a part of that discussion. And as Kevin said, you can certainly conclude these subcommittees and reappoint them, in the same way, especially the sanctuary city item, because you guys are, new into this work and getting a lot of really good information that I know you want to continue on.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if we have any other regular items that are likely to be on the June agenda, but I generally like this idea of really thinking through each of these committees at the June meeting. I also think that that should probably be the main regular item on the June agenda if we do that, especially if we also go into broader work plan discussions. But even if not, because it might make sense to have that in August instead, I do think that if the idea is each committee really discusses where they're at and what future things might occur with them and all those things, that might be the main item at the June meeting.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I'll say personally, for me, if there are folks who expect to be leaving, then I think we would really appreciate, hearing their thoughts and, having the benefit of their wisdom before they leave. So I think that would be great to have that kind of input. Okay, that was just by way of kind of general announcements, preview of coming attractions, and we will move on then to the rest of the committee updates and take them up in the order in which they're listed on the agenda. And the first item is Campus Council on Community and Diversity. And Edgar, I'm going to turn it over to you if there's any report there.
No, the next meeting will be June 5th, so I want that. But just to highlight the fact that you will need to find a replacement for me and then coordinate with Michael.
You're reminding me that you are one of the great members that we're going to be forcibly losing.
Michael, will it work if we put this on the August agenda once we have new members slated?
Yes, the first council meeting doesn't take place until October anyway.
Okay.
So if I can just have a decision by September.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Lisa, will you know?
I should add, as part of Edgar's report from Campus Council on Community Diversity, in our last meeting we'll be announcing the 26 Campus Community Project author. Not allowed to announce it until it's formalized because the Mondavi Center is still doing negotiations for the author.
This was for Kate's ear and she'll
I'm sorry. You'll be happy to know that, it's very relevant to what all of us are discussing tonight. So, but until then.
Looking forward. Always really great work being done. Thank you for that. Okay, let's move on then to the Committee on City Holiday Observances. I remember there was talk one time of a survey that we three together was going to be doing.
I haven't received any updates on that.
So, yeah, we have not met otherwise. I assume we're going to be dissolving next month and then deciding if we want to reconstitute in August. And I think we would still be interested in hearing what the community said, if that's information that could be useful to us in this no updates now.
Okay, thank you. The next one then is the Civil Rights Ordinance. Carrie and I have had some conversations, but the committee has not met. And Carrie and I are discussing what it would look like if the city, if the commission carried out its functions under the Civil Rights Ordinance. And I don't think there's anything more to say at this point.
No, I was trying to just, I think I'm getting myself confused with something else, so I'm going to not say anything.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have then the Cesar Chavez celebration. Maybe I think it's
looking committee.
Shout out, what a great event. It was so
What?
fantastic.
Oh,
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it, well attended, great fodder for us to get input for our sanctuary city conversation. There were so many people there that sort of overlap, and entertainment was great. The mayor did his entire speech in Spanish before he did it in English, and I was very touched by his energies on that, and I just thought it was a lovely event. Thank you to the people who made it happen.
Yes, I second that motion, and all those sentiments. Really, really good work. Really, one of those times where you feel really proud to be with the city meetings. So thank you. Okay, nothing else then from that committee. Next committee then is on researching ways to report hate incidents.
We also haven't really met much recently, so there's not really anything new on this, but hopefully there will be in June.
Okay, thank you. Any questions then or comment? Okay, next item then is the inquiry to discrimination concerns Palestinians, Muslims, and allies. That committee has not met, and I think does not plan to meet again. And there is no report from the committee. But I think, Amir, you suggested earlier that you wanted to raise an issue.
Right, so given what we've learned at the beginning of the meeting, that a minority opinion is part of the process as long as the commission approves that. Since last time that we met, wasn't sure whether that's even allowed, and yet the staff weren't sure, there was no precedent, so we've looked it up, and apparently it's allowed, as long as the commission allows. So I want to bring that issue. I again ask the commission to allow a minority opinion to go along with the report.
Okay, and can you speak to how you envision that process working?
Yes, I can provide that minority opinion. Basically, it's already written, so whenever, at any given date, I can provide that minority opinion. It would be attached to the report, and if and when it goes to City Council, it goes as a single document.
Okay, I'm going to treat that as a motion. I think.
I just want to clarify that we would actually need to have this formally agendized for a conversation. So with the mayor's suggestion, then it would, if there's a commissioner that wants to make a motion to, add this additional thing to the report, it would need then to pass tonight, and then it would come back in June, so that minority opinion could be part of the packet. You guys could have a discussion on it, and then that you would review it and vote on it. So if you were to go forward with a motion tonight, then Amir, sounds like he's making, you would need a second on that, essentially to put it on the next agenda for discussion and review, and then you could approve it if the commission chooses to do so.
I guess I can talk next. I have a diversity of thoughts about it. I've been thinking about it since our last meeting. And, I'm ambivalent. I believe that every voice should be heard. I am I'm very much a person who prefers like unanimous, and if it's not unanimous, I think everybody should get a voice about why. And so philosophically, and like in terms of setting a precedent, I would be fine with the idea of the city council getting to hear everybody's voice on an issue. That being said, I'm concerned about some of the potential fallout, like for example, if it makes reports very, very, very long and then the city council doesn't want to entertain our reports anymore, that's a problem. If it demonstrates a lot of controversy within our commission that makes us look unprofessional or inhospitable in some way, then I don't feel good about that. If it creates a lot of bureaucracy where we then now have to come back again and again, because I guess I feel like we would all need to see what that opinion is, because frankly, I would like to just trust you on that, but I felt like the comments you made to the city council were disparaging to all of us, and now I wouldn't want those same comments to be attached to the report. I would want you to say all the things that bother you about it, but like without all additional comments directly reflecting negatively on the HRC. And you're saying anyway that would be the process, that the report would have to come forward. So I guess I'm interested in what other commission members are thinking about it. I think I don't know if we should put this on our work plan to then decide whether we're gonna have this as a universal policy from here forward, or if we can just make a decision on this one. I'm just not sure how to proceed, but I've thought about it a lot and have not reached an answer.
Yeah, I'm also conflicted. I've been giving it some thought as well. Like Lainey said, I like the idea of everyone's voices being heard, but as I think I alluded to last time, I feel like my voice is heard. I'm speaking about it here. This is being recorded. This is going into public record. If I felt so inclined, I could go to city council and share my opinion there, which you did. I feel like you've expressed not just how you felt about the report, but also your distrust in this group. I feel like you created some division there, and I'm really disappointed in that. If you don't trust us, I don't understand why. I don't think we've given you a reason to distrust us. I think that I believe in the democratic process, and I think the democratic process was carried out. We voted, majority voted to send this up, and I want to know what your intent, what your goal is by providing your opinion against something. And I think that would open up such a precedent for every single time that we individually disagree with something, that we then are gridlocked by this back and forth of whether or not we should agendize an item for one of us to express our dissent for whatever is happening and then provide a minority opinion. I feel like that we already get so little done with the time that we have that it would just slow things down even more. I think that when we express ourselves here in this open forum, I think that is, for me, personally, if I disagree with something as I'm disagreeing with now, I feel like this is enough. I feel like I've expressed my opinion and my opinion has been heard, and my opinion will go into the record and will be there forever to be accessed by another commissioner 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Okay, thank you. Felix, comment?
Yeah, so I also have very mixed feelings here. I am very, sympathetic to the idea of dissenting opinions being brought forward and not being silenced. And I think there have been a lot of issues with that in Davis City government before, especially when it comes to commissions. This is something that I've observed with a lot of commissions, especially the planning commission actually. So I definitely think there should be ways to better emphasize dissenting opinions to the city council, but I do wonder what the best way to do that would be. I think the staff in the staff report should emphasize that it was not a unanimous vote and that there was dissent. And I think it would be helpful if some of the points of dissent were even included, either points that were made at the last meeting by like members of the public or by commissioners, but it's even possible that a dissenting opinion can be sent to the staff and some of that can be summarized as part of the staff report. But directly including a commission dissenting opinion, I do have some like hesitation on, especially if it doesn't get like looked at by the commission ahead of time. And if it were to be looked at by the commission ahead of time, that would also draw this process out further. And that is one of my main like hesitations here as well, is we've already discussed this issue twice and voted on it, and it's not the like only thing that the commission covers, and I feel like if it does come back in any form in the next meeting, that would likely mean that the next meeting is going to be largely focused on that topic for like the third time. So again, I do wonder if there's ways for this staff report to include actively dissenting opinions without us needing to re-agendize this again, and in a way where the staff is able to maybe like summarize some of those dissenting points and have it be put forward that way, in addition to linking to the minutes and linking to the video recording and those types of things too, if people want to like observe further aspects and details of the dissenting opinions.
Well, I guess I would add that I'm also struggling with this idea. The reason that I've heard articulated for this is that it is a parallel to the judicial system where judges give dissenting opinions in court cases. And I'm sorry?
I think I said that.
Okay. Well, I think you weren't the only one. We heard public comment on that as well. And for me, that is not an appropriate analogy because the reason that there is a tradition for dissenting opinions in court cases is that voices would not be heard otherwise unless they had that opportunity. And that's not the case with members of the HRC. Each member has a full and absolute right and opportunity to speak directly to City Council publicly, in person, and in writing, and engage in any other advocacy that they wish to in support of their views. And as others have mentioned, we have seen that right freely exercised on more than one occasion. The rationale for it is not well taken in my mind. And I do think that people can and should appropriately express their views and that there are mechanisms for doing that. I also worry that a practice like that may negatively impact the kinds of discussions, deliberations, and exchanges that we have as colleagues. Because I think it has the potential to promote or favor dissenting opinions that come after reports that end up looking more like hit pieces. And I think what we really want to do is promote robust dialogue and discussion in an effort to reach consensus. And if people feel like their views have not prevailed, then they're free to carry them forward in any way that they wish. So that's my rumination on the subject, for what it's worth. And I don't see anyone else. Edgar.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one a lot. And to me, it was more of a question of, is it allowed? And if talking to staff, and I don't know if it was mentioned in the beginning, and I missed that part, it was?
Yeah.
So it is allowed. To me, it's more about if this is something that is allowed. In the last meeting, it was unclear if it was allowed or not. And so if it is clarified that this is something that is allowed and there's a process for it, then I feel like it's allowed to go through the process. In this case, I don't know what the opinion's going to look like yet, but I want to see what that opinion's going to look like. So if there's a vote to see what that minority opinion is going to be, I want to see it. And we can have a second vote on whether or not that if that a minority opinion should be allowed or not. I think if this is all within the rules, then we should be able to follow the rules that are put forth, and we can take a vote on it.
Gary, can I just clarify? You said, I understood it, that it was, or as Edgar is kind of paraphrasing now, that it's allowed. I understood you to say essentially that it's sort of not prohibited, but I'm wondering, is there a practice, procedure, a precedent? Is there something to look at that says, this is how the HRC has done this in the past, this is how other commissions do this? Edgar seems to have in mind that there's a rule that allows for this, and I'm trying to understand what that rule is.
In my discussion with city manager about this item, we determined that if a member of the commission tonight decided to make a motion to either I guess it could be a couple of different ways, potentially reconsider what all is included in the report, then you guys could decide to bring it back at a future meeting to potentially add an addendum to the report to, include this dissenting opinion. So if that was the case, tonight what you'd be doing is making this motion to say, we'd like to relook at this, and we are going to bring it back at our next meeting, and at the next meeting, maybe a dissenting opinion draft would be incorporated, and then you guys would have a longer discussion as, kind of what Edgar is saying. I guess another way would be to, let me think about this, sorry, kind of lost my train of thought. One would be, I guess, to amend the report. A second, or if you didn't want to amend the report, a motion could be made tonight to have a separate item to come back at the next meeting to also have a dissenting opinion. So it wouldn't be really amending the report. It would be having a secondary item that doesn't amend the report to go with it, which would be the dissenting opinion.
So, Gary, that's all, I think, fine. I guess what I still at a loss about is, it sounds like there are multiple ways in which, if the commission wished to do so, it could accomplish this goal, if it had that goal. I guess what I was asking is, what's the rule that that allows this, and under what circumstances, and by what mechanisms? And it sounds like there isn't. It sounds like there's no prohibition against it, and that's the sense in which it's allowed. Okay. But
that is my understanding as well.
Okay. Thank you. Felix.
See, I'm concerned about if any of us were to draft an opinion, the others would want to read it. And then if we, at that point, bring it back for discussion and we decide that we are not equivalence on the opinion, then I feel like at that point, now we're silencing each other. And I know that you wouldn't want to be silenced by us. I mean, that would strongly feel, that is a strong message that we don't like what you have to say, and we don't want you to say it. Right? I wouldn't want to feel that way. And so I feel like that's why expressing ourselves here verbally is, I think the best thing to do. It opens up a can of worms that I just, if we set this into motion, it's going to open up a can of worms that I don't think I want to open personally. And that's why I don't think we should go down that route.
Okay, I'm going to take one or two more.
Mostly clarification.
Okay, please.
Yeah, so I was wondering what the current timeline plans are for this item going to council. And also, would it be possible for the staff, within the staff's power and ability to form staff reports, to include a piece about the reasoning of dissent, without that having to come back to us for another, discussion and vote?
I don't have any direction yet as to when this will go back to council, so I can't speak to that. I will say that the staff analysis that goes with the report, when it does go to council, will certainly include discussion about dissenting opinion and some of what that included.
And would it be possible to include not just things that were brought up at the last meeting, but to possibly include parts of what Amir has written? Would it be possible to work in some of that in this type of way without necessarily the, full document having to be voted on by us?
That is a good question that I think I'd probably have to see that information first to see. I mean, to me, it seems like the staff analysis should include information that was shared publicly at this meeting or previous meetings.
Is it, I feel that I read somewhere that the motion needed to come from somebody who voted in favor of the original. Is that true or is that not true?
It probably depends on the way that you guys go about it. I think that if the motion, last time there was a motion made but no vote taken because it died for a lack of second. I think if there had been a second and it failed, then that would be the situation where somebody who voted against it could bring it back for reconsideration. In this particular case, while a motion was made, there was no vote because it never went anywhere. It died for lack of second.
Well, I guess my final comment on this is, we were to go down this path, I think we would have to have a sort of a consistent policy and practice and set of rules, and I don't think have that, and I'm not comfortable sort of doing it on the fly without that kind of process and reflection. So,
If somebody wants to make a motion right now.
well, I think there is a motion on the table.
I don't think we document that as a motion because there was never a
Oh,
second,
I'm
so I
sorry.
think it was just opening up discussion.
I'm sorry, I announced that I was treating it as a motion. But yes, we can absolutely have public comment on this.
Yeah, and then there was never a second, so
Right.
we might want to reformalize that after public comment.
Really quickly, we still have some more committee updates. I think, do we want to finish the committee updates and then open up public comment, or how do we want to do that?
With a little bit of indulgence to complete this item, I think it might be helpful to have the public comment now, and then we'll try to wrap up with the committee updates immediately after, if we aren't held very strictly to our 9 o'clock 30-minute deadline. Mr. Hirsch.
I'll be quick. I think Kevin said a lot of the concerns. I'm very much in favor of capturing dissent, because your dissenters see things that people in favor think miss. It's very important to capture those ideas and to share those for council. I think it's important. But the question is, making an official dissent, what does that add to the dialogue? Because if you dissent, you can still write a letter to the editor, you can write to all the councilmen, put an op-ed in the Davis Enterprise or the thing. So there's no quieting. Maybe we could have that these things should officially put in the records, but theoretically, the letters written to this commission are part of the record already. So I'm not quite sure what making an official dissent adds. Is it about delaying the process? We don't want to have that happen. Is it about theater, making this official versus what it really doesn't mean much? So I just kind of understand what's the value added here of having an official dissent versus just a dissent that can be voiced out in the community. That's my question. But again, dissent is good. Talmud is full of it. Dissent is really in capturing that and observing that for the future. But what's the point at this point? What's the value added for the procedures?
Thank you.
Alan Miller, the value added is that you have the minority voice officially in the report. As I said last week, or last time, this isn't about just one group. This is about, you're supposed to support minorities. The irony of you even considering this as the committee that you are is just absolutely outrageous to me. So you didn't want to open a can of worms? All right, I'm opening a can of worms. No matter what the hell happens, whether you do this officially or not, if you don't do it, in case you didn't notice, all the non-anti-Zionist Jews in this town don't like y'all. And if you don't do this, you are going to piss us off. You want to open a can of worms? Don't do this. I am officially now calling for the dissolution of this committee again. You disgust me. You are clearly, you just do not want this particular minority opinion in your precious report. I call for the dissolution of this committee. In case you didn't see the comment in the Vanguard this morning, it basically said that it seems that the Human Relations Committee attracts those least likely to get along with other humans. That was just an insult that I am repeating and throwing right at y'all. I kind of like you. It's too bad you're leaving. Anyway, be gone. Davis will be better for it. Be gone.
Thank you for your comment.
I'll be quick, I know that the hour's late. I just, I've been on a commission since December of 2018, been on a lot of majority sides, been on a lot of minority sides, and so I really understand the want to make sure that that's incorporated. It's just, as I'm listening to this conversation, I'm like wanting to pull my hair out, worrying about like the precedent that you could set for future commission members and other commissions in this. I think the analogy to the Supreme Court and the judiciary was brought up. I think that the biggest problem with that is just that this is not a judicial body. This is an advisory legislative body, and you can really find no other comparison where we're in a legislative body, where we're producing a legislative product either in an advisory fashion or in a final sense, where we're saying, hey, this opinion was not able to coalesce a majority, but we're going to move it forward anyway. I think it just can set a possibly unnecessarily complicated precedent for future commissions and other commissions that you're working alongside in the city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Someone else is coming forward. You think so?
Hi.
I agree with everything that Dylan said. I think it's really, really important to not delay processes when you've voted on something. And so I think creating a precedent is going to delay things further. You already have a short period of time. We've gone over almost every single meeting, actually every single meeting this year, right? Because there's a lot of voices that need to be heard in a short period of time. And I think if we keep on revisiting things, we have other subcommittees that can address other issues that we have in our town, but I think it's important. I would say this about any dissenting opinion, just to be clear, not just because this one directly affects me and my community. I don't think you should set that precedent of having a dissenting opinion. Like it was also said, there's other avenues to be able to express that. We've heard in this open forum opinions. So I encourage you, Amir, to do that, to use your public voice and not do it as a commissioner and not hold up the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Writing a minority report is a normal function of any committee. I work at UC Davis. I've served on numerous committees, and whether it is at the department level, the college level, the campus level, articulating the reasons behind a minority report set the record so that someone 2, 5, or 20 years from now doesn't have to go through all the hours of the meeting, doesn't have to slog through all the written minutes, but can find one succinct place where that minority report is published. That's its purpose. Whether there's a precedent because it hasn't been done on this commission before is really not the question. If the policy of the city allows this to happen, which it does, then I'm not real clear what the question is. The point is there was a lot of discussion over multiple meetings. I wasn't here for all of them. I listened to them online afterwards. You think someone 5 years from now is going to be able to figure out where all that online stuff is and take the time to listen to either what Dr. Cole says or what any other commissioner or member of the public says at any of these meetings? I think that's pretty short-sighted. Our time is precious for everyone, and having a succinct summary of what the minority opinion is a real gift to future people who are trying to understand what happened here at the HRC. Thank you.
Thank you. Ridiculous.
This is the transcript of what Amir said as a citizen to the city council. This is right here, easily found. And I can submit it to council or the commission.
Thank you. Okay. Kerry wanted to clarify, I believe, whether there was a motion made, if I understood your question.
Yes, I think initially Amir made a statement, and you said you were going to call it a motion, but then it went directly into discussion, and so there was no second of that. So I think it would be beneficial to ask Amir if that was a direct motion, and then to clarify exactly what that is, and then see if we've got a second for that for a vote.
Yes, that was a direct motion. And the motion is, it looks like that it needs to come back to be discussed during next meeting. The possibility of me submitting a minority opinion on the monthly report.
And I'll second it.
And just to clarify, Kerry, if I understand correctly, the motion would be to put on the long-range calendar, right?
I think what I heard the motion to say was that it would come back at the next meeting for consideration.
And are we free to agendize such matters without council approval?
I think it's all part of the MAPA report discussion that you guys have already been doing.
I see, okay. Okay, with that clarification then, there's a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions?
I'm sorry, I'm still very torn about it.
Okay, well, then I believe the motion fails. I heard 2 votes in favor and no others. And
So I just want to clarify that we've got Edgar and Amir is voting in favor. Was there any abstentions?
yeah, I'll vote no.
I guess I abstained.
Okay, so Lainey and Connor abstained. Kevin was no. Felix? No. Okay, so then the motion does fail.
Thank you for that. Okay, we are on then to further committee updates. The Committee on Anti-Semitism. Is there a report from the committee?
No.
Okay, very well. Sanctuary City, I think we've had that discussion today. The web page review committee.
We have no further updates at the moment.
No, we have not.
Okay. All right then, that, unless there is sort of public comment on lack of reports, that completes item 6B. We are now past time, and I'm going to look to.
I suggest moving this actually to August when we have new commissioners and we can start fresh there.
That makes sense to me too. Okay, we will dispense then with item 6C and postpone that to our August meeting. And if there is no further business then, there's item 7, which is, yes, the long range. That's true. Thank you, Connor. Is there anyone who at this time would like to put forward a suggestion for the long-range calendar?
I said it before, but I'll repeat it. I think having the main item in June be the, like, wrapping up some of the subcommittees and or just kind of getting a good gauge where each of them are at as we prepare for a transition to a new, like, commission term.
Okay. Yes. Point taken. Thank you. Anyone else then on that item? If not, then we'll take public comment. Mr. Hirsch?
Long range, I sent you an email about a survey that the PRR, said about people's trust in one another. And trust underlies so much of what we're doing. There's the actual, but there's the trust. Trust of the sanctuary cities, trust about police, trust about intergroup tribal relations, and that's really important. And we have a national benchmark where we could basically add, on a regular basis, put in part of the Davis survey, trust within our community. And I'm urging you put this on the agenda, pass it so it's not forgotten when that survey comes up again. It should be a pretty short item. This is a lot for you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, welcome back.
Alan Miller, I'd like you to put an item on future agenda to dissolve yourselves, to self-destruct for the good of Davis. Sort of like self-deporting, I think. Please. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other further comment, I think we are at a conclusion, and I will announce that we are adjourned.